Hello everyone, my name is Abhi and this is Maha Film Fanatic, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 Telugu movies to release in 2018 that you might want to check out. So I've already made a video where I ranked the top 10 Telugu movies of 2019, and so check that out if you want some more recommendations of some great Telugu movies. But I wanted to make this list because 2018 is one of the greatest years in Telugu cinema, where some of my personal all-time favorite movies came out. Of course, it's nearly impossible to have seen every single Telugu movie that have come out in 2018, so I'm going to list a couple that I have not seen that may have potentially changed this list. The movies are as follows: Bhagamati, Nidi Nadi Oke Kata, Krishna Arjuna Yuddham, Kanam, RX100, and Nivevero. Now, even though I haven't seen these movies, I'm pretty confident that they wouldn't change my list very much. So, let's get started. Starting our list off at number 10, we have Attribution. Attribution is about a retired engineer who works for an Indian space station who has to recover a satellite that is on a collision course with an international space station. This movie is remarkable as it's one of India's first space movies and manages to create a convincing atmosphere of space and a space shuttle, and the actors deliver sincere performances that are ever enhanced by a great background score. Now, admittedly, Attribution was criticized at the time of release for its somewhat poor CGI and questionable logic, but for me these issues didn't take me out of the movie, and I believe this movie was overlooked way too quickly. So if you're looking for an entertaining time and you like space movies, you should definitely check out Attribution on Amazon Prime. Next at number 9, we have Geeta Govindam. Geeta Govindam stars Vijay Deverakonda, who plays a misunderstood lecturer who falls in love with Rashmika Mandana's character. It's a pretty typical commercial entertainer given the genre and overall predictability of its premise. However, its clever screenplay lacks both melodrama and unreasonable logic, making it stand out of the bunch. Vijay Deverakonda is great in this movie, proving his versatility as an actor, going from the more serious Arjun Reddy role to something more lighthearted. This is also probably the funniest movie of 2018, with great comedic performances from both Venala Kishore and Rahul Ramakrishna. So if you want to watch a fun, entertaining romantic comedy that doesn't take itself too seriously, check out Geeta Govindam. Next at number 8, we have Taxiwala. Taxiwala stars Vijay Deverakonda, who plays a taxi driver who buys a vintage car that happens to be possessed. Firstly, this movie has an incredibly interesting concept that manages to be entertaining throughout, providing a lot of suspense and excitement. Outside of the concept, the greatest strength for Taxiwala is Vijay Deverakonda's performance, again another departure from Arjun Reddy, and in this one he's very stylish and cool, but still doesn't take himself too seriously as he carries the movie on his shoulders. And Taxiwala also manages to be a supernatural film that maintains a certain level of realism that many movies in this genre fail to accomplish, providing valid explanations of the supernatural occurrences with realistic performances all around. So if you like supernatural movies that's not too over the top yet entertains, check Taxiwala out. Next at number 7, we have Ee Nagaraniki Emaindi, and Ee Nagaraniki Emaindi follows 4 childhood friends who come together to make a short film. The premise sounds basic, but this is honestly one of my favorite movies of all time. It tells a realistic story about friendship, following your passion, and coming to terms with your past. It's a wonderfully heartfelt story that is strengthened by great dialogue and comedy in the screenplay. The only reason it isn't higher on this list is that I felt it dragged too much in the second half, severely limiting its pacing. But otherwise, all the actors are newcomers and manage to give brilliant performances, and the film is also enhanced by a wonderful soundtrack by Vivek Sagar. This is also the second film directed by Tarun Bhaskar after Pelli Choopulu, which I consider a near masterpiece, and in this one he proves that he is not a one-hit wonder and that he has a place in Telugu industry for years to come. Anyways, this is definitely worth checking out on Netflix. Next at number 6, we have Sammohanam. Sammohanam follows a young cartoonist who detests the film industry yet finds himself falling in love with an actress. This is also one of my favorite movies ever, with Sudhir Babu and Aditi Rao Hydari shining as the leading pair with sparkling chemistry between the two, and the characters in this movie overall feel incredibly authentic and vulnerable, enhancing the overall emotional impact of the film. Vivek Sagar also did the soundtrack for this movie, giving it a nice melodious score. But I will say the one major flaw in this movie is that there's a sequence near the end of the film that is super dragged out and out of place, which, like the last movie, severely limited its pacing. But this is somewhat cancelled out by a fantastic first half and a well-written screenplay, and Samohanam even manages to provide a commentary on the state of the Telugu film industry, which many films dare to do. Overall, this is a breezy, engaging love story that you should definitely check out on Amazon Prime. Next at number 5, we have Rangastalam. Rangastalam follows Chitti Babu and his brother, who has returned to their village to realize nothing has changed for the better and decides to run against the tyrannical president of the village. Ramcharan stars as Chitti Babu and gives a brilliant performance, probably the best of his career, and the rest of the cast, Jagapati Babu, Adi Pinisetti, and Samantha, also gave some of their best performances. I also found the costumes and set designs wonderfully portrayed the look of a village in the 1980s, creating a realistic setting. However, Rangastalam is carried by a gripping screenplay that doesn't play to commercial appeals and grounds itself in a level of realism. And the writer-director Sukumar builds the movie up to a great climax, where the film initially plays as a political drama, but closes as a revenge tale. The only complaint I have for the film is that it starts slowly and the general pace of the movie is also slow, but they at least use this time for good use. Overall, this is a well-directed movie with a career-defining performance from Ramcharan that you should definitely check out on Amazon Prime. Next at number 4, we have Ah. Ah is an anthology film that follows different stories that all come together at a unique restaurant. Ah has probably one of the most unique concepts that also manages to tell a very progressive story. It's honestly a very smart film that makes you think, and it's one of those movies where you probably won't completely understand what the movie means on your first watch through. Along with the unique premise, Ah hosts a great ensemble cast who all give wonderful performances in their respective stories. Not to mention that the production design and special effects are really engaging. This is a movie that you need to watch to fully appreciate it, so go check it out on Netflix. Next at number 3, we have Gudachari. Gudachari follows a young NSA agent who tries to follow in his father's footsteps but is framed for murder by a terrorist organization. This is probably the closest India has got to a James Bond movie. Gudachari is a true original action spy movie that doesn't try to rip off similar movies from Hollywood. Adi Seth did a great job carrying most of the movie on his own, and even with its low budget, Gudachari manages to stay true to the scale and imaginativeness of the story. This movie is also great at building tension, and there are many moments in the film where you're at the edge of your seat as there are many unsuspecting plot twists. Overall, Gudachari is a stylish, cool take on the spy genre that we haven't seen executed so well in India, let alone in the Telugu film industry. So if you want to check it out, it's available on Amazon Prime right now. Next at number 2, we have Care of Kancharapalam. Care of Kancharapalam is an anthology film that follows 4 different love stories spanning age, religion, and status, all set in the small town of Kancharapalam. This movie is a genuine masterpiece, as this is another all-time favorite of mine. It's beautifully written, shot, and directed, and the director realistically transports the audience into a rural setting with all the correct sights, sounds, and atmosphere. I like for realism so much that the actors are just regular people from Kancharapalam. The movie also manages to show love in a light that is not typically shown in Indian movies. Where love has traditionally become a commercial commodity in cinema, in this one it's actually real, showing how love changes at each stage of life. Care of Kancharapalam is a sincere portrayal of a rural village and of unheard regional voices, told very raw and uncinematically. So if you want to watch a sincere story, Care of Kancharapalam is available for streaming on Netflix. Our first honorable mention is Chaila So. Chaila So is about a man with little interest in getting married who attends a blind date that his parents set up, where during this date he begins to change his mind on the institution of marriage. Chaila So is an admittedly well-written movie, winning the National Award for Best Screenplay. It's a great coming-of-age romantic comedy about marriage and growing up, serving as a nice, breezy film. I seriously considered putting this one in the top 10, but I found it to be a notch below Antariksham, as it was neither entertaining nor high concept enough to be in the top 10, but is a great movie nonetheless that I recommend you check out. Our second honorable mention is U-Turn. U-Turn follows a newspaper intern and a police inspector who investigate the death of motorists in a series of similar accidents. U-Turn is actually a pretty great movie that manages to create a lot of suspense while mixing in supernatural elements. The only reason it's not in my top 10 is because it was hindered by a weak ending, as well as it being way too similar to the original Kannada version. But the movie is entertaining as a whole and has great performances, so it's still worth checking out on Amazon Prime. Now I'll go through the next 3 honorable mentions rather quickly, as it didn't really warrant being considered on this list like the last 2 honorable mentions. So our next honorable mention is Crack Party. Crack Party follows a group of friends throughout their college years. Now, I didn't consider this movie for the top 10 because it's a remake of the Kannada film Crack Party, and it doesn't do much to differentiate itself, but it's still a pretty fun movie that I had a good time with. So if you enjoy college movies, you'll definitely like this one. Our next honorable mention is Bharatani Nenu. Now, I honestly haven't enjoyed many of Mahesh Babu's movies in the past few years, but Bharatani Nenu was a somewhat pleasant surprise. The movie follows the main character as he becomes the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh overnight as he fights the corrupt political system. The premise is admittedly unrealistic, but the first half is really engaging and does a good job of not over-dramatizing everything, and it does a good job of exposing the problems of Indian politics. But things do go sour in the second half, and everything becomes way too predictable and commercial. All I'll say is watch it for the first half. Our final honorable mention is Na Peru Surya Nailu India. This movie follows Allu Arjun, who plays a semi-retired army officer who tries to control his anger management issues in order to fulfill his dream of hoisting the Indian flag at the Indo-Pakistan border. Now, I'm an Allu Arjun fan, so I might be slightly biased, but I really thought that this movie had a great concept and had the potential to explore the mind of an Indian military vet, which is something rarely done in Indian cinema. But despite still providing a compelling character arc, this movie fails in execution as it lacked focus and was all over the place. But you'll really enjoy this movie if you are an Allu Arjun fan. Otherwise, you might be slightly frustrated by the wasted potential, but it's a movie still worth checking out. Now finally at number 1 we have Mahanati. Mahanati tells the story of the legendary South Indian actress Savitri, and this film was maybe the definition of a masterpiece. It's a love letter to 1950s and 1960s South Indian cinema, but more importantly, it's a celebration of Savitri's life. Kirti Suresh truly embodied the role of Savitri, and director Nag Ashwin tells an emotional and compelling biopic of the late Savitri. And he tells the story through the lens of a fictional character played by Samantha, who has a character arc of her own, which complements the main storyline brilliantly. Both of these storylines were equally as compelling and never disrupted the pacing as Nag Ashwin switched between the two. And along with Samantha and Kirti Suresh, all the performances in the ensemble cast were wonderful, with Dulquer's portrayal of actor Gemini Ganeshan being most notable. What's more incredible is just the movie's ability to convincingly depict the film industry at that time, and a lot of the credit goes to the costume design. Now for me, Mahanati is one of those movies that's just almost perfect, and I can't fully describe why that is. But the best way to experience it is to watch it right now on Amazon Prime. Thank you for sticking through till the end of the video. As I mentioned in the beginning, 2018 was a monumental year for Telugu Cinema and was host to some of my favorite movies of all time. So I recommend you watch some of these movies if you're either new to Telugu Cinema or you just want to watch a good movie. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and let me know in the comments down below if you agree with the list or you think there should be some things I should have changed. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Thank you.